While Putin's peace plan remains largely unacceptable to Ukraine and its various allies in the West, the international community's stance, as seen in the Swiss meeting going on at the moment, supports or continues to support Ukraine's sovereignty and the ongoing challenges faced by Russia, both internally and externally, contribute to a perception of a weakened Putin, if Putin is actually alive. I strongly think he's not. But the concept of Putin to recognize the personality cult of Putin that he set up, that should be continued because power resides in personality. This is something that was recognized and rather beautifully emphasized in the 1956 film of El Cid with Charlton Heston. How when El Cid died, he rode in the final phrases of the film, out of the gates of history into legend. Vladimir Putin's peace plan, which has been perceived as an ultimatum, has 3 points to it. One, the recognition of the annexed territories that Ukraine must accept, even though Russia hasn't even conquered those territories, including Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk, and so on, Zaporizhia. Recognition that Ukraine should then be a neutral state and should abstain from joining NATO or any other military alliances that don't conform to the Russian pattern of control, and that it must reduce its military capacity and refrain from hostile actions against Russia or Russian interests. So Zelensky has already rejected this in terms of sovereignty and territorial integrity and national security. Its neutral status and its demilitarization would be seen as undermining Ukraine's ability to defend itself against future aggression. And international law, Zelensky says, recognizes Crimea and the Donbass region as part of Ukraine. The Swiss meeting, which is going on at the moment, has involved various international stakeholders discussing the ongoing conflict, potential pathways to peace, but not Russia and not Belarus and not China. And the international consensus is that there's a strong emphasis on the need for a negotiated settlement that respects Ukraine's territorial integrity, and humanitarian aid should be increased, particularly to keep the lights on and the electricity flowing, and diplomatic channels need to be opened despite the ongoing hostilities and despite the absurdity of imposing sanctions on Russia. The sanctions stop the diplomatic efforts, and we need to do everything we can. I think that is our major purpose, our major aim at the moment, is to find ways to open diplomatic channels properly, even if Russia and Ukraine cannot formally enter negotiations. We should be able to do so on their behalf, and we should be able to keep those conversations going and to prime Russia so that Russia isn't constantly issuing these absurd absurd demands, ultimata, in the name of the dead Putin. The Swiss meeting hasn't come to any immediate breakthroughs, but it's reinforced the international community's support for Ukraine and therefore complicates Putin's plans by showing a united front of Western and allied nations against the territorial ambitions of the Kremlin. This adds to the military setbacks that have been recorded in Russia. The military setbacks, the attacks on aircraft and installations, which paint a picture of a less effective Russian campaign than Putin would like to present. And the economic sanctions have strained Russia's economy, but leading to domestic discontent. But what I find worrying about that is that domestic discontent is therefore blamed on the West. And that domestic discontent would be there because it's discontent with Putin's pugilism and Putin's personality rather than the international sanctions. International sanctions don't do anything except for cause an irritation. They are an irritant, and they stop us from having a diplomatic influence. Does this cause international isolation? Yes, in a way, but it causes our isolation as well when we should be engaged in trying to broker deals. And Putin may well be in a much weaker position, militarily, economically, diplomatically, and the perception that there is a difficulty for his people to negotiate, but that also means there's difficulty for us to negotiate, for us to engage in diplomatic support. And meanwhile, in the intransigence of Putin, because he's not alive, because he can't make decisions, because it's a group of bureaucrats who don't really know what they're doing, and they're continuing the legacy of Saint Putin. Saint Vladimirovich. Sort of snuggling up against the frozen peas in the Smeg fridge. There's nothing positive about that. Nothing positive. And we should be talking to people who are in a position to make concessions and to alter the strategic objectives put in place by Putin in his failing days as he was dying.